Keith Paints.
Hey folks, welcome back to Keith Paints. This video is already 2 days late, and I'm in the middle of moving across the country, so I'm going to try and keep this one quick. For July, a bunch of YouTubers wanted to paint Ork Commandos or Mek Gunz, or just anything orky in the end. And as it happens, Mekka Miniatures, of whom I'm a patron on Patreon, recently created both Commandos and Mek Gunz. I went with the Mek Gunz, but I felt they could use some glyphs. What you are watching now is me sculpting some big gaudy glyphs to plaster all over them things. Well, just one, I guess. This is my Death Skull logo. I thought I recorded the sculpting of the Baden Grimguts glyph as well, the war boss for my Death Skulls, but I either forgot to or I accidentally deleted it. I also made names for both guns, Gulgor and Guldaka, as well as some teeth for the front, and runts. When painting in the past, I've only ever used one coat of spray, and always found that some areas weren't well enough covered. So this time, I decided to spray them twice with Mekka Blue, which I was really happy with. So I go on to do a really rough wash with Drakenhof Nightshade, because I can just clean it up with Mekka Blue from the pot. It was only then that I discovered that the Mekka from the pot doesn't actually match the Mekka in the spray can. It is actually darker. Maybe I didn't shake it well enough, but for the second one, I gave it a quick once over with Mekka before shading. The checkerboard patterns I hand painted with Celestra Gray. All the metal bits I based with Lead Belcher and Screaming Bell, but I skipped filming it to save time, and all the blue gets edge highlights with Calgar Blue. Now it's time to paint up all those glyphs. I paint the back of them first, as it's unlikely the backs of all of them will be completely covered. The teeth got Lead Belcher, the Ork and Runt skin is Deathguard Green. Bone and Horn get base coats of Zandri Dust, and the Flame gets Mephiston Red, as do the guts hanging out of Baden's mouth there. Same colors for the front. For shading, I gave Bone a wash with Seraphim Sepia, Horn a wash with Agrax Earthshade, Teeth with Nuln Oil, and Fire and Guts with Carrowbird Crimson, which I also did for the back. The back ended with shading though, where the front gets additional layers. The green skins get Elysian Green, and eventually Nurgling Green for the edges. Bones get Ushabti Bone, which I decided to hatch on for some reason. Not sure why, but I liked it, so I kept going with some Screaming Skull on top of that. The teeth on the Death Skull and on Baden get the same colors, just more of them. The horns I drew lines on with Rhinox Hide and highlighted each line with Zandri Dust. Red gets Evil Sun's Scarlet and Wild Rider Red, and the teeth I painted scratches on with Runefang Steel. For the runts, I drew face paint on each glyph, and when I eventually paint runts to fire the Mek Gunz, I'm planning on giving them similar face paint. Now, everyone knows that gluing a painted surface to a painted surface is just going to rip off the paint, so I drilled a little bit through the paint on the back of each glyph, so the super glue would have something to hold on to. I also drilled or scraped some paint off the Mek Gunz while test placing the pieces. I hadn't planned on using every single glyph, but I just ended up going crazy with them. It felt like the right orky thing to do. Finally, after all the glyphs were in place, I painted on some battle damage. I probably should have put a bit of damage on the glyphs as well, but I was pretty time limited with this project. I think the glyphs could have used some bolts too. Oh well, I'm pretty happy with how they look. Before the big reveal though, let's take a quick look at what others are up to. First up, John from Earhawks Minis, who organized this collab, bashed up this sniper on a diorama base. Brack de Warboss bashed together this bubble chukka. Fiverr from Sugar Candy Miniatures made an Ork Kitty Ride. Clint from Essex Boyz is working on a big wagon. And the Drunken Ork made these 3 killer cans. Alright, that's all for this week. Here's Gulgor and Guldaka, the start of my Ork proxy army, cause FUGW. If you're into 3D printing, check out my other channel to keep up to date with what's available on Patreon and Kickstarter. Links in the description. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching.